Thanks for joining. In this lesson, we will practice with variables in JavaScript. If you have any questions or need clarification along the way, feel free to comment below. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more exciting lessons like this. Let's jump right in and start learning. In the previous lesson, I explained how to execute and manipulate the JavaScript code using VS Code, browsers, DevTools, and Node.js. Now, in this lesson, we will dive into variables. In JavaScript, variables are used to store and manipulate data. They act as containers that hold values which can be accessed and modified throughout your code. You can store the shopping basket items there, people, your thoughts, numbers, strings, functions, and so on. Variables are an essential concept in programming as they allow you to store and work with dynamic information. To create and use a variable in JavaScript, you need to declare it using the let, const, or var keyword followed by the variable name. Here is an example. Let's consider the example of the variable age. We use the let keyword to declare the variable age without assigning any initial value to it. This means that the variable is declared but the value is undefined. Later, we can assign a value to the age variable using the assignment operator. For example, age will be assigned the value of 26. Now the variable age has been assigned a value of 26. You can also declare and initialize a variable in a single line, like this. Now the variable and the assigned value are stored in computer's memory. The variable is assigned a value and the variable's name serves as a pointer or reference for that value, so we can use it. If I say console log street name, JavaScript will print the result 11 lane. Street name is a reference to the string value 11 lane. JavaScript is a dynamically typed language, which means you don't need to explicitly specify the type of the variable. The type of a variable is determined based on the value assigned to it. For example, the variable age is automatically assigned the type number or int because we assigned a numeric value to it, and the street name variable is assigned a string. About data types in JavaScript we will talk with the next lessons. Variables in JavaScript can store various types of data, including numbers, strings, booleans, objects, arrays, and more. Here are some examples. Again, don't worry about all these types, it will be explained later. So far, we are creating variables and assigning values to them. Next example, let's declare variables using one-line declaration, or as we usually call it, a one-liner. So I say, let my name is Mike, then comma, then again variable name, his name is Boris and her name is Jessica. And as you can see, we skip the let word declaration in the beginning of the variable's names. It was declared only once, and then all variables are declared with a comma separator. And yes, it looks shorter, and we saved some time, but the code readability was reduced. Let's compare the one-liner with the standard declaration. And as you can see, this type of code is much more readable than the code declared as one line. But you can declare the code using this style. So actually, you can declare all these variables using the preferred method. It's just a matter of personal approach, what you like and your agreement within the development team. So for better your understanding, let's imagine that the variable is a container or box or a tag attached to the item. You can write something on a box to memorize what's inside and place your items in the box in accordance with the label. So imagine what fits best for you. Let's continue with variables. And if something changed, you can reassign the value. So my books was holding only 2 books before, and now it's reassigned, and the value of the my books is a string with 3 books. With variables, you can assign a value of one variable to another variable. So now we assign to my books the value of my lucky number. And if I console log my books, we will get the value of 25, because we reassigned the my lucky number value to my books. So you can reassign the value, but you cannot declare the same name variable twice. If I try and create the same variable let my books, I'll get an error, so a variable can be declared only once. When naming variables in JavaScript, it's important to follow certain conventions and best practices to ensure readability and maintainability of your code. Here are some guidelines for variable namings in JavaScript. Use descriptive names that are easy for humans to read, such as house number or total distance. Avoid abbreviation or short names like A, B, C, D, and so on, unless you have a clear understanding of their purpose. Strive for names that are both descriptive and concise. Generic names like source or reply provide little information. Establish consistent terminology within your team and in your own understanding. For example, if a website visitor is referred to as a user, then related variables should be named new user or registered user instead of using user1 or user2 and so on. Also, you can use the $sign for naming and underscore. And with the example on your screen, you will get an error because spaces are not permitted, dashes not permitted, and the variable cannot start with a number. Also, you can use the non-Latin letter for variables naming, but it's not a common practice, and these examples you will find in books only. In JavaScript, there is a list of reserved words that have special meanings and cannot be used as variable names. These reserved words have predefined purpose in the language, and using them as variable names would result in conflicting interpretations. To obtain the full list of reserved words in JavaScript, you can refer to the official documentation websites that we discussed in previous lessons. These resources provide comprehensive information about the reserved words and their specific meanings within the JavaScript language. Next type, constants. In JavaScript, the const keyword serves the purpose of declaring a constant variable. A constant variable, as the name implies, holds a value that cannot be altered or reassigned once it had been assigned a value. The introduction of the const keyword in ECMAScript 6 brought a convenient way to define variables with values that are meant to remain unchanged throughout the program. When you are certain that the variable's name should not be modified, it is considered good practice to declare it using the const keyword instead of let. This helps communicate the intention of immutability and adds clarity to your code. By using const, you ensure that the value remains constant and cannot be accidentally reassigned, which can help prevent unintended side effects and improve code readability. Here are some important points to know about const in JavaScript. When you declare a variable using const, you must assign it a value at the same time. Once assigned, the value cannot be changed throughout the program execution. Next, const, the same as the let, are block scoped, meaning they are only accessible within the block of code where they are defined, and block is typically delimited by curly braces. Next rule, the const cannot be reassigned to a different value. Any attempt to reassign a const variable will result in a runtime error. And few more rules. While the variable itself is immutable, it doesn't mean that the data it holds is also immutable. If the const variable holds a reference to an object or an array, the properties of an element of that object or array can still be modified. It will be discussed later. By convention, const variable can be written in uppercase letters with underscores separating words if needed. This helps to differentiate them from regular variables and indicates that their value should not be changed. As an example, pi is 314. Then we can assign a hex value to blue constant, and then we can assign it to sky. Now, with these constants, you don't need to remember the hex code of the blue color, you just use the blue word. This is commonly used in programming when you need to use long strings at value, and you can assign their values to the respective variable with the short name to avoid typing errors. Memorize them and bring consistency and explanation in your code. And I'll give you a few examples with score variables and const pi variable. In JavaScript, variables can be used in various ways, such as performing calculations, concatenating strings, accessing object properties, iterating through arrays, and much more. They provide flexibility and allow you to store and manipulate data as your program executes. Remember to choose meaningful variable names that describe the purpose of content of the stored data. This improves code readability and makes it easier to understand and maintain your code. Naming variables is a fundamental and intricate skills in programming. It's easy to differentiate between code written by a beginner and that by an experienced developer simply by looking at their variables' names. In real-world projects, a significant amount of time is spent modifying and expanding existing code rather than starting from scratch. When we revisit code after a period of time, well-named variables make it much easier to understand and allocate relevant information. Take the time to carefully consider the appropriate name for a variable before declaring. The effort invested in the practice will yield significant benefits. While these guidelines may seem straightforward, putting them into practice by creating descriptive and concise variable names can be challenging. However, it's well worth the effort, so go ahead and embrace the task with confidence. Overall, variables are a fundamental concept in JavaScript programming that allow you to store and work with data dynamically, making your code more flexible and powerful. And the third type of variable is var. We will have a dedicated lesson about this variable, as a lot of developers are still using the var type variables, though it's recommended not to use it. With the var variable you can just declare any name without var and assign it a value. So you just write the variable name and assign a value. That's it, no any let, const or var. So this variable will be implicitly assigned var. And if I declare it, we can access it. But with the use strict directive we get an error. Again, we will talk about it later. So far we are using only let and const. At the conclusion of each lesson I highly encourage you to complete the assignments, as they will greatly contribute to your progress in JavaScript. By consistently practice you will see faster results in your learning journey. Let's conclude this lesson here. In the next lesson I will explain semicolons in the end of the string, comments and statements. Each lesson will build upon the previous one, making the concepts more comprehensible as we progress. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or need further assistance, feel free to comment below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more great coding content. Stay updated with the latest videos by ringing the notification bell, and happy coding!